Hello and welcome to Newsfeed, your daily dose of what people are talking about online, from news stories to what's trending. Now let's start the show in Ukraine, where President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has made a surprise visit to the recaptured city of Izium. It's one of the 300 settlements that Ukrainian forces have retaken from the Russians since September 6th. Now, recapturing Izium is significant because it was a major logistics hub for the Russians in Ukraine's north. The city in the Kharkiv region was left devastated after the Russians withdrew following months of occupation. There have been reports of abuse and torture carried out by the occupiers. Ukrainian authorities are now investigating to get a full picture of what happened in the city, which had a pre-war population of 46,000. Zelenskyy earlier said that about 8,000 square kilometers have now been retaken from Kharkiv. In his Telegram feed, the president shared these pictures showing the city reduced to rubble. He wrote, "Earlier, when we looked up, we always looked for the blue sky. Today, when we look up, we are looking for only one thing, the flag of Ukraine." And here he is in Izium doing just that. Our defense analyst Ubaisha Bandar takes a look at where else the Ukrainian flag might now be flying.
Okay, so we're looking at a major strategic defeat for the Russian military here in the all-important Kharkiv Oblast. Now, remember, this is an area that the Russian military, in the first phases of the invasion, thought they would easily be able to capture that strategic city of Kharkiv. That's just a few kilometers away from the Russian border. But instead, the Russian military has really received a mauling by Ukrainian defenders. And now, for the first time since the invasion, we're seeing the entire oblast or province being completely cleared of Russian forces by the Ukrainian military counterattack. And now, the reason why this counteroffensive has caught the Russians by surprise is because the Ukrainians launched two simultaneous counteroffensives in two separate fronts. One here in the east in Kharkiv, pushing down towards Izium and down towards Donbass, and the other one down here in the south in Kherson. So the fact that these were two simultaneous counteroffensives really caught the Russians by surprise. Now, why Kharkiv, the offensive in Kharkiv is so important here is because this is where the Russians sent their most elite unit, the 1st Tank Guards Army. That's now been, according to UK Defense Intelligence, severely degraded. So that's going to have a long-lasting impact on Russian fighting power. And now we're seeing the Ukrainians capturing Izium down here. That means they could potentially sever the lines of supply and lines of communications of Russian forces that are attempting to push further into Donbass. So now we may be seeing the Donbass front being back into play as Ukraine continues its significant and so far successful counteroffensive across multiple fronts.
The late Queen Elizabeth has left Buckingham Palace for the last time, with her coffin brought to the Palace of Westminster in a ceremonial procession. The king led the procession with Princess Anne, Princes Andrew and Edward, as well as William and Harry accompanying the coffin to Westminster Hall. There, she will lie in state with members of the public filing by continuously until the morning of the funeral on Monday. Officials have been preparing for a queue of up to 8 kilometers long. Public toilets, first aid, and 24-hour refreshments will be available along the route for the hundreds of thousands expected to line up. The king will be hoping things go more smoothly today than they did on Tuesday at a signing ceremony in Northern Ireland. Charles III vented his frustration as he wrote down the wrong date. And then, to make matters worse, his pen started to leak.
Is it September 12th?
13, sir.
Oh, God, in the wrong date. 13?
Yes, sir.
You signed 12 earlier.
Where did I go to? I signed 10. Oh, God, I hate this.
Oh, look, it's going everywhere. Hang on. Does anybody got a trouble?
Where is the man?
Oh, look, it's everywhere.
Oh, there is bloody thing. What do I do? Everyone's stinking.
So awkward. Meanwhile, floral tributes laid in honor of the late Queen continue to be placed at landmarks around the United Kingdom, particularly in London. The increased demand has seen flower imports go through the roof. The flower industry in Turkey has seen demand grow by over 80%, and Turkish firms are predicting that a total of 1.5 million carnations alone will be sent during the period around the funeral. But not everybody's happy. Flowers often come in plastic wrapping, which damages the environment, so volunteers have been helping remove the plastic to ensure it's disposed of properly. While others have complained the money spent on flowers could have been put to better use. Economic justice campaigner Richard Murphy says the royal family should have asked for charitable donations and suggests food banks could do with extra cash. Budika here wonders if planting bulbs or flowers would have been more environmentally friendly, something the green-fingered king would probably prefer. So a woman in Beirut wanted to take some cash out of her own bank account. Nothing abnormal about this scenario, right? So far, just a regular Wednesday afternoon, right? Well, just wait. So Salih Hafiz didn't trust the bank to hand over the money. So she pulled out a gun, took hostages, and demanded access to her savings account. It's reported she even threatened to set herself on fire unless she could withdraw the money, which of course, let me remind you, was her own money. Well, Hafiz did get the $20,000 from her savings account, which she needed to pay for her sister's cancer treatment. But the concern about being unable to take out your own money in Lebanon is real. It's an economic crisis, and because of that, banks have blocked access to many people's savings.
My sister and I worked hard to save money. It's not a big sum. My sister needs $50,000 for her treatment. Our bank balance is $20,000. We sold most of our furniture. People think we're living in luxury because we used to be like that, but nobody knows our situation now. I didn't take all the money out. We took $13,000 in total, $12,000 and 1,000 Lebanese lira. And we signed on this and filmed it as a proof because they would say I took 100,000 because they're thieves and they lie. I apologize to everyone we scared inside the bank.
And just some 20 kilometers away from the capital, a similar incident occurred. An armed man walked into a bank branch in the Lebanese city of Ale to withdraw some money. It's been reported that before he handed himself over to security, he was able to get his hands on his savings. Because of the economic crisis in Lebanon, people are tweeting that armed robbery is becoming the only way for residents to recover their savings from banks. And in classical social media fashion, people online have started to romanticize real life, calling Salih Hafiz a hero, saying that she was forced to take extreme measures to get her money out after exhausting all the normal ways to try to withdraw her funds. And now she's internet famous. Netizens have been praising her. Here's someone calling her iconic and potentially even legendary. The latest report by the UN's World Meteorological Organization says the world is entering uncharted territories of destruction due to the climate crisis. The report says many countries fail to take the necessary steps to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. It said that over the last 50 years, climate-related disasters and extreme weather events have increased fivefold, and they cost $200 million a day, as well as risking lives. Data collected by UN agencies indicate pledges made in the Paris Agreement are not being met. Despite all the warnings, countries continue to break records in terms of greenhouse gas consumption. The WMO said it's now more important than ever that the world acts to prevent current and future climate risks, especially in vulnerable parts of the world.
The current fossil fuel free-for-all must end now. It is a recipe for permanent climate chaos and suffering. Today, I urge leaders to heed the facts of this alarming report. We must unite behind the science. We must turn pledges into action now.
So Elon Musk has spent the past 2 months trying to get out of his $44 billion deal to buy Twitter. But the social media giant is also fighting tooth and nail to get him to follow through with the acquisition. Twitter shareholders on Tuesday voted in favor of the billionaire's takeover deal. Under the terms of the deal agreed to in April, each Twitter share would be sold to Musk for $54.20. That's about 30% higher than the current stock price. Musk has now made 3 official attempts to worm out of the takeover by claiming that Twitter violated the deal's terms. As you can imagine, there's been a lot of social media reaction on the latest development in the takeover saga.
Just take a look at this. Twitter shareholders vote in favor of Elon Musk's $44 billion takeover offer at special shareholder meeting. Now, if you don't remember from a couple months ago, Elon had that whole thing where he wanted to expose the bots and bring Twitter to court, said he was going to buy Twitter, and then he ended up backing out. But now the Twitter shareholders have voted for him to take over. And we know this is not the move he wants to make, but at the same time, he did sign a contract. But I'm pretty sure he can pay a fine to get out of that deal. But it's going to be really interesting to see what Elon Musk does.
So despite initially agreeing to buy Twitter, Musk now sounds like a scorned ex, accusing the social media site of shady practices. He's been particularly vocal in alleging that the tech giant undercounts bot accounts on its platform. And Twitter's former security chief turned whistleblower agrees that stuff really is shady at his former employer. He outlined some damning allegations while testifying to Congress in Washington on Tuesday.
The company's cybersecurity failures make it vulnerable to exploitation, causing real harm to real people. And when an influential media platform can be compromised by teenagers, thieves, and spies, and the company repeatedly creates security problems on their own, this is a big deal for all of us. When I brought concrete evidence of these fundamental problems to the executive team, and repeatedly sounded the alarm of the real risks associated with them. And these were problems brought to me by the engineers and employees of the company themselves. The executive team chose instead to mislead its board, shareholders, lawmakers, and the public instead of addressing them.
The European Union's General Court has rejected Google's appeal over the bloc's antitrust ruling. The tech giant's Alphabet unit has been found guilty of using its Android mobile operating system to quash rivals. Google appealed but lost the case. The court said it largely confirmed the European Commission's decision that Google did in fact impose unlawful restrictions on manufacturers of Android mobile devices and mobile network operators to ensure the dominant position of its search engine. The original fine has been reduced to $4.1 billion. Google said that it was disappointed in the court's decision and may well appeal again. All right, on to what's trending now. Well, Marvel is getting flack over their upcoming Captain America New World Order movie set to be released in 2024. And here's why. All right, our next story. You may not know this, but the sulfur-crested cockatoo is one of the world's smartest birds. Scientists say their intelligence is comparable to human toddlers and also chimpanzees. The cockatoos are one of the few known non-human species capable of dancing in time to music. As you can see from this clip right here, some pretty cool moves right there. But the birds are currently at the center of a fierce battle against man. And no, it's not a dance battle. It's over an unexpected resource, namely garbage. Now, residents in the Australian city of Sydney have been caught in a battle of wits against the cockatoos as they tried to stop the crafty birds from raiding their rubbish for food. But as fast as people come up with new ways to stop the cockatoos, the birds quickly come up with impressive counter tactics. Scientists from the Max Planck Institute have spent the past few years studying the birds' behavior and found that they learn their bin opening tricks from each other. In 2019, such tricks were only seen in 3 Sydney suburbs, but by 2019 had spread to 44 suburbs as the cockatoos copied moves from each other.
When we first started looking at this behavior, we were already amazed because actually the cockatoos learned how to open the bins. But then looking at how this progressed and the people then protecting the bins, and I was like really astonished by like how many different methods people have invented. It's like really amazing. And then taking this like one step further, so the cockatoos being able to solve some of the methods and then people escalating again. So I think really this sort of like stepwise progression and reiteration that was like the most interesting part for me. Also, for example, like if you put bricks on the bin lid, then in some areas the cockatoos are able to push them off. But I don't think that was like immediately. So I think they have a certain capacity to problem solve, and we know they are super curious and they like to explore. But I don't think that protecting the bins will in itself then make the cockatoo smarter because they figure out how to solve it.
All right, hope you learned something new about how smart birds are in today's show. We'll find this show on our YouTube channel and do subscribe. Bye and see you same time tomorrow.